6th, 2020. 2020 is the worst year ever. Pretty much. I think it's topping them all. I mean, I've had some bad times. This sucks. So, today, Eddie Van Halen passed away from cancer. My mom passed away just a few months ago on June 8th from cancer. So, I'm going to tell you a quick story about Eddie and my mom. They're both, you know, my mom is like Dutch, Indian, you know, Cherokee, very little Cherokee, but Dutch. And her grandmother lived next to the Van Halens. Get that. So this is, okay, here's the area. So here, it's the 1981, I think, 1981, 82, one of those years. I think it was 81. Yes, it was 81. With it was a Main Street, you know, whatever Main Streets. Main Streets, right? Isn't that what it's called? No, it's called Fair Warning. Jeez, that tour. So that tour, I got that tour shirt on. I come walking in for Christmas at my mom's house, where her mom was still alive, and she had red hair. And in Holland, people with red hair were considered witches. Yes, I'm playing a Van Halen guitar today. This is what I play a lot now because when I got out of stores. So there you are. We got a Wolfgang with some polka dots. So, but you know, there you go. Let's put a sharp nose back there. I don't know why. So I get this. So this is the beginning of the Van Halen stuff. I totally forgot this until just now. So I walk in and I'm got my Van Halen thing, and my grandma was pretty, you know, cool with me being into rock, you know, growing my hair out, and she thought I looked like Van Halen, which she thought was David Lee Roth's name. So she goes, "Oh, you have that guy Van Halen shirt on," and my great grandma said, "Him?" And I'm like, "Van Halen, you don't know who they are." She goes, "I know the Van Halens." I'm like, "You don't know the Van Halens. It's a rock group. It's a heavy metal band." And she's like, "No, I know those kids. I know those kids and their father and their mother from that island. They got one of those island mothers." And that was the only thing that kept people from throwing rocks at my great-great-grandma, because she had red hair and was a witch, was the only thing that was just as was marrying one of the Dutch Indies women and bringing him back, which their father did. That's why Alex looks like he does. Like, they both look like they got some kind of Asian thing going on because their mom was from the Dutch Indies. So you gotta do. Every real Van Halen fan knows this whole thing. I had no idea. So she goes on telling me, you know, that just because she was cut some slack because they would, you know, they were more upset about the mom, the Van Halen mom. And that's why they wanted to get over here no matter what, just to get out, because Holland was crazy. They are crazy. They're still crazy. They smoke pot and allow prostitution and all that. Yeah, that's good, if you're into that. Anyways, so yeah, back about, you know, 50-something years ago or more, because of my grandmother, when she came over, she was very young. Great-grandmother, I mean, great-grandmother. My grandmother was born in Salt Lake. That's where they came over, and then, but anyway, so she's going on and telling me that, I go, "Well, what's the dad's name?" She said, "Jan." I'm like, holy crap, she's right. She does know. I go, "You know the kids' names?" She's like, "Oh, I think they named them after Beethoven." I'm like, close. because it's Edward Ludwig Van Halen. She knew that much. So they were neighbors, and I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, what are the odds? But she wanted me to take the shirt off. And I'm like, no, I'm not taking the shirt off because I don't have anything else to put on. Forget it. She was furious the whole time. She went home early. Well, who cares? Wasn't a big fan of my great-grandma anyway. So, that's the first. Now, let's go to 2006, 7, something like that. 6, I think. I took my mom to the House of Blues to see Tom Jones. And, you know, we're right in the front. And, you know, I'm making some cash back then, so money was no longer. There were great tickets and everything, and parked in, you know, good valet parking and everything. So we come out, we stand in the line with the first valet people, because we're paying to be out of there quick. And I hear this guy, you know, Eddie's got this gravelly, old, you know, voice. It's, you know it's him as soon as you hear it. And I'm like, no way. At the Tom Jones concert? Maybe. So I turn and I'm like, it's Eddie Van Halen. And he was talking to his wife, his now wife, or his last wife. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to be really cool about this. Because he was talking about having to fly. That's right, he was talking about having to fly out to Dime's thing. Like the next day or two. So he was going to do that. He was like, you know, I think I'm going to give him the real you know, guitar that he wanted. I'm not giving him one of the ones off the line because they're not ready anyways. And he's telling her all this. And she's like, fine, you do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. So I'm like, holy crap. Because that's the guitar everybody wanted. Everybody wanted that black and yellow. It looked so cool. But apparently he hated it. He didn't like the way it played. It was really different from... In Charvel, you know, they were good, but they were pretty hit and miss in the early days. And we're talking early days. He had a boogie body and I think a Charvel neck. Just very plain and horrifyingly like this. I like a little, you know, lacquer on mine, but whatever. So I go and I'm like, hey Eddie, because I met him before. I met him because they used to rehearse down the street here at a place called Visions, and it had a big mirror on the wall, and that way you can see yourself rehearse. So when they were getting ready to go on the first tour to open for Black Sabbath, I knew it. I knew of Van Halen, and so when I found out they were, you know, it'd just be me, my mom, and my sister in our giant AMC Matador station wagon sitting out in front of the studio. It's just right off the street, off of 3rd Street in Burbank. And everybody rehearsed. Everybody rehearsed there. So we're listening, and I'm like, that's that guy, because he's just doing too many. Whoa. Because the album it was out already, and it was going up. But they hadn't gone on tour yet, so they were getting ready, and they were doing that thing, and they come out the door, and it's David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen. I'm like, whoa. That was like, it was 78, so it was like 12, 11, something like that. 11 or 12. So at the same time I started taking lessons from Randy. And I knew better not to ask Randy to teach me a Van Halen song. Because he was pissed about the whole thing. Because he already had an album out, the first Quiet Riot. He wasn't happy with it, but it was out. And now Van Halen is signed to Warner Brothers. And they're going to go out and, you know, he's going to be the one to get out. Because it was kind of like, if Eddie got out, he was going to be, you know, the one. if Randy got out, say Ozzy got kicked out 3 years earlier, and it happened, who knows what would happen if Randy would have started, instead of Eddie. But the thing with Eddie is he revolutionized everything. He didn't just come out, because Randy was an excellent guitar player. He knew the instrument inside and out. He knew what he wanted as far as, his designs and everything. And eventually he got his design that he wanted. He liked Flying V's, but he wanted because he'd had regular guitars. He could pick up these junk Gibsons all the time, and he got a good one, the custom, that some of them people bought him, and he paid them back for it. I think it was the band or somebody. Can't remember the story. But anyway, so going back to Van Halen, it's very hard to, because Eddie did a lot. Because he came out with a homemade guitar. It was a Fender with Gibson parts in it, or Gibson, pickup. And he'd done something to the pickup. And he'd done something to the amp. All mistakes. He bought an amp from the Pasadena, I think it was the Pasadena Theater or Civic PCC or something. Somebody had a Marshall, and they didn't think it worked, so they sold it to them for nothing. Trouble is, it was European. It was from UK, so you plug it in, and you wait 3 hours for it to warm up, and then you can barely hear it, but it sounds amazing because the tubes are just, everything is being overgrouped. So that's how he got the idea to do what he did. Crank everything up, dump EL34s in, take out the other ones. I think it was 6550, put in EL34s, and just put in the European pickup or tubes. Crank the friggin' amp up, but put the voltage thing behind it. The Variac, which was all very important for that sound. And after, once he started getting into touring and trying different things, he got away from that sound a little bit. You could hear it on Van Halen 2. It's like, that doesn't sound very good. And then Women and Children First, it's still a good sound, but it's because it's coming from here. He was messing with guitars, he was messing with everything. So he decided to go back to his guitar and go back to that amp and do the setup, and that's why Mean Streets sounds so good. Mean Streets. Fair Warning, because he's got that, he's trying to get that, tone again. And then he went and blew it for Fair Warning because he was just mad, and then by 1984, the album, it was all guitar. Keyboard. And if anybody saw that tour, you knew that they were huge. They finally been huge. And they would have been #1, but Michael Jackson knocked them off. And then when David Lee Roth found out that Eddie played on the single that knocked their #1 single down, and furious. And that's really why he went left and did his little EP to get back at the band. But let me see what happened. So it all went to crap. And then we got Van Hagar, where to me Van Halen disappears. I didn't listen. There was one song that me and one of my girlfriends, liked. Oh, look at Van Halen. But I think of Sammy Hagar he's just goofy. I don't like him. So ruined the band for me. Castrated the band. So even with David Lee Roth back in the band, and he can't sing, and he doesn't have the mane of hair and all that, he still brought out that Eddie and the way he played. He was much more aggressive with David Lee Roth than he is with Sammy Hagar. Party animal, dude. You're 70-something years old. Quit drinking. You're a bloated old fish. So, anyways. Okay, so great grandma gave me the lecture about how she grew up. Okay, so now we're down at the thing, so I tell Eddie, hey man, you're a great guitar player, big influence on me, blah, blah, blah. I didn't tell him, hey, you remember me when I was 12? I just blew it off, because this is one of the bands I didn't run into a lot. Only person I ran into was David Lee Roth. Twice, 3 times. Twice at Motley Crue. And one, we were out back. The first time, Motley Crue was big. They were selling out the whiskey and playing there all the time. Whiskey, 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 whiskey. So we were backstage talking to Mick for a couple hours, and then, one of our parents showed up, and we had to split. So we're young, no car, whatever. And so we're walking out, and David Lee Roth is at the bar. He's keeping the bar open, or they're keeping the bar open for him. Upstairs, whiskey. This is the old whiskey. And he's got nothing but 20 girls around him. And I'm like, dude, it's David Lee Roth. I'm going to get his autograph. So I go up. He's got 2 big bodyguards there just looking. I'm like, I'm just going to get his autograph. No. I go, what do you mean no? I bought all their albums. I'm a fan. He should give me an autograph. I mean, hey, he's got enough girls. It's not like, hey, he's giving a kid that an autograph, and then, and the girls are going to walk, whatever. So I said, come on, let me just get it. He goes, no. I go, listen, that's a bunch of bull crap. Because you are nothing. You're just the same guy I saw walking out of the studio when I was 12 years old, and you didn't pay me any attention. You didn't. He thought he was a rock star. As soon as they got, before they got signed, but as soon as they got signed, his head went boom. That was David Lee Roth. That's why he was the way he was. He was a good frontman. Was, whatever. So I got really mad and I started cussing him out in front of the girls. That actually made the girls like, well, maybe he is kind of, but it is David Lee Roth, and none of them laughed. And he just looked at me like, what's up with that kid? And then turns around, and then I'm like, I go, I went up to the bouncer, I'm like, you tell him that. Beep, beep. And that was it. And then, when he was like on his 3rd, 4th solo album, and nobody cared about him, and it was like at the end of the 80s, or beginning of the 90s, I don't know. I'm coming out of the rainbow, always coming in or out of the rainbow, and here comes David Lee Roth in like camouflage outfit. Nobody's even going up to him. And he's just, hey, all stoned, got that goofy girl. So I'm like, hey, David Lee Roth, hey man, how's it going? Comes up, shakes my hand, how you doing? What are you doing here? Is it hot tonight? Not a great looking chicks in there? And I'm like, there's always chicks in there. And I didn't want his autograph now. I'm like, never got it. Don't care. I got Eddie's. How did I get Eddie's? Oh, because of Tom Jones. So anyways, I tell Eddie, you're cool, blah, blah, blah. He goes, that's just, whatever. It's cool that you say that, but, there's a lot of great guitar players. I go, no, but you started a lot of things. I mean, customizing guitars and, coming out with your own thing. And the tone, the playing, everything. You were like totally revolutionized guitar playing. He's like, well, I appreciate that. That's cool, man. Thanks. So I'm like, okay, now I got to tell Ma because she loves Van Halen. So I go, this is 2006, so she was going to be about she was in her late 60s. So I go, all right, Ma, I always called her Mom. And I was always there with her. And always. Even when I was married, I was married to my last wife, and I said, look, I got to take her to see, Tom Jones. I came down from Utah to do it. I was always there. There's people that are like, oh, they showed up when she was sick, now she's gone, and they're gone. That's how this family, works. Whatever, man. It's your problem. So, anyways, I go, Ma, listen. Eddie Van Halen's next to me, so just be Eddie Van Halen. And she goes, flying in front of me, and she goes, Eddie. And he goes, who are you? And I go, Eddie, that's my mom, Mom, Eddie. And he goes, Mom. And she's all, Eddie, and they hug. And I'm like, I'm not getting any hugs. What's going on? So I'm just standing there like, what is happening? And she's like, well, how's your cancer? Are you doing good? And I didn't even know he had cancer back then. And he's like, oh, I'm in great shape. And he lifts up his shirt, and he had a six-pack. He always had a six-pack of not beer, but his stomach. And I'm like, whoa, he is in good shape. He's like, come on, hit it, Mom, hit it, come on. He's doing this. And she's like, no. And she taps it, And he's like, oh, you're so sweet. And he leans over and kisses her on this cheek. She's like, oh, you know what? He goes, what? This is so crazy. And I'm just standing here, and they're right here. And my mom's like, on this cheek, Dean Martin kissed me. And now you kissed me on this cheek. So I've been kissed on this cheek by Dean and this cheek by you. That's great, because I love both of you guys. You're both great. And he's like, I kissed the same face as Dino? No way. And his wife was like, calm down, shh, quiet, because people are starting to, but it was a Tom Jones crowd. Still, there was people that, So, the wife was like, get the car, and they're talking, and, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I didn't get hugged by Eddie, I didn't get kissed by Eddie, but my mom did. And she was so happy after that. She got to see Tom, and she got to meet Eddie Van Halen, and he kissed her and all that stuff. And I tried to get it on my phone, take pictures, but, I'm not good at that kind of spur of the moment thing. I got like 2 blurry pictures, one when he was waving to her, and then the car they were in one of those new Thunderbirds. So that's the stories that I can think of right now. They really were off. My grandma living next to Van Halen was just insane. And then my mom. And now my mom and Eddie are hanging out again. So I know as soon as my mom was gone, Elvis was on her target. And then Dean Martin, and now she's got all 3. Dino, Eddie, and Elvis. Or Elvis, I should say, Dino, and Eddie. But it's my mom, and she loved him. So, there you go. The first when I heard it today, I was shocked, and then I started to get really depressed and sad, and I'm like, no. I listened to, I just put it on stereo and cranked like several Van Halen songs real loud, and I'm like, that's it, man. That guy was amazing. So that's it. That's my Van Halen stories, and I think I've run like 23 minutes. Wow. You guys gonna even want this? Well, that's my Van Halen stories, and today is the day he passed away. And everybody knew it was coming, but no one wanted to know. No one wanted to admit it. But he looked good when we saw him, but he was still smoking, and I couldn't believe it. He just had the operation back in 2006, and he's puffing away. And he says, no, it's because he held a metal guitar pick, because he said he used to use metal guitar picks. Really? I never caught one. I never saw. He did use it for something, but he didn't always have a metal guitar pick in his teeth. Because he said that, with all the electronics flying around in the air because of the amps and everything, caused his cancer. And all the burn marks on his head, that's what caused your cancer, buddy. So now we've lost Eddie. So, Randy. Eddie. Well, the only ones that are make me upset is Mick, because I know him and he's very cool, and I think he did did his part in music. And Ace Frehley, that's gonna come, because Ace partied and he's been sober 14 years. Last month, but 14 years and he's in his 60s. So that means he didn't stop that long ago. Now me, as far as partying and drinking and all that, I stopped, 4 years ago when I was like 31 or 2. But, you know, I had that little problem. Here's the lesson. Here's the moral of the story. Don't drink, smoke, or take drugs. Period. The end. Because your body is a gift, and I'm not going to get all religious on you. All right, ready? So